Welcome into a toasty live weather impact on this Thursday, June 11th, the hottest day of the year so far in Charlotte. You're probably not shocked to hear that. You may be shocked that it's actually going to get hotter tomorrow. So bad news, if you didn't like today, it's going to get a whole lot worse. Now, we are tracking some isolated storms, but they've all kind of fallen apart. Here's the thing about these intense heat waves like this. When it's super hot and humid, you can still get a pop-up storm, but they don't last very long because the mechanism that's driving them is also the thing that's going to squash them. So intense heat creates an updraft, but because there's not a lot of cold air loft or wind shear, they collapse on themselves. We call them pulse storms very often because they pulse up severe, then they go away. So there's still a chance through the evening we could see one or two of these bubble up. We had one warning, which didn't last very long up in Iredell County. Here's a great example. Look at Wadesboro area in Anson County. Storm to your west, bubbled up, went away. So there's nothing like there's a bubble or force field around your house. This is the nature of these storms this time of year. Unless they form over you, they're not going to form to your west and move into your area. That's just not the way they work with air mass thunderstorms. So these are different than the storms that form on cold fronts or other type of systems. So every summer I feel like we battle this. People think they live in a protected area that never rains because of a mountain, a road, and a lake. It's just the nature of storms. It's not raining in 99.9% of our area today. So it's not just you. It's a little bit of everybody. You can see temperatures right now still hovering. It's 6:30 and it's 93. That's gross. And our heat indices are around 100. We topped out at 101, by the way, which is the hottest of the year so far. I was going to show you the feel-like readings. I don't know what happened to them. They went away. Let me show you real quickly. I was going to pull those up. Well, I guess I'm not going to show it to you. I had them popped up earlier. They dissipated. But tonight, you see temperatures barely getting back below the mid-70s. It's going to be a struggle probably to get below 80 until late tonight. So just a heads up, it's going to be hot even after sunset tonight. So a lot of folks will push off their exercise plans until later in the evening. It's still going to be steamy, just not as bad as today. Tomorrow, by the way, is hotter. So 97, I'm going with a high temperature tomorrow. It's going to feel like 105. But here's the deal. Tomorrow's record high is 98, set back in 1956. So there's a chance we could tie that. Look at the average high, 86. So it should be cooler. I mean, it is summer, but it's not usually this hot until we get into July or early August. Weather-wise, we're going to talk about some big storms up in Illinois. I'm tracking a monster supercell up there right now on radar, and it's a very fascinating storm. It's got a couple. There's actually 3 supercells with circulations. Tim and I will have to dive into that. That's crazy weather stuff going on up there. But for us locally, we'll get into that coming up after the break. But for us, not a lot of storms here the next 24 hours, just isolated at all. That's why it's so hot tomorrow. Now this weekend, there's a hint that we could see a better chance of after and evening storms. And why we want you to say weather impact aware tomorrow, this weekend's going to be equally as hot. It's just not going to be as bad as tomorrow. And here's a good idea of what to expect. The highest heat index, so the peak one for the day tomorrow, probably around 104, 105. Saturday, technically lower, but not great at 103, 102 Sunday. But then Monday, Tuesday, you can see we start to see some relief in the form of some lower heat indices. But just a heads up, tomorrow we are under a heat advisory for the whole Charlotte area. Now, this is just a semantics kind of thing. The heat doesn't stop at county lines. So I know folks in York County, Lancaster, Lincoln, Iredell, Rowan, you're all going to be hot. You're going to have the same conditions as Charlotte. It's just because of the way counties are set up, they're just artificial boundaries. That's just the way the alerts are issued. So I just want everyone to treat this like a heat advisory tomorrow. It's not going to be just like going across the Catawba River is going to change things all that much. But that'll give you a good idea on kind of what to expect tomorrow. It will be the hottest of this heat wave, not only from an air temperature standpoint, but also the heat index value. So tomorrow, heat advisory in effect, dangerous heat and humidity. And again, first couple days out of school for kids, they're doing a lot of stuff outside. They're not really used to the heat. A lot of workers, bless all of you roofers, HVAC people climbing into attics right now. This is brutal. And I saw a lot of HVAC people today because guess what? A lot of air conditionings broke in this heat as well. So please, please, please be safe. Take frequent breaks, drink plenty of water. Get into air conditioning to cool off. I mean, here's the thing. Like I exercised in the heat today. I just was smart that I got home and drank some electrolytes, got into air conditioning. And that's what you can do too. You can get out in the heat. Just make sure you get in and cool off and drink plenty of water to protect yourself. And if you have any hint of not feeling good, just head inside, get some help immediately. So here's a look at the Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. You can see temperatures again in the low to mid 90s the next couple of days. Next week, there are signs of cooler temperatures as we start to see basically some slightly cooler air, not because of it's that much of a cool air mass, but because of more clouds and showers. That should absolutely help us out a little bit, and that will actually give us a better chance of seeing potentially some slightly cooler conditions in the mid 80s, but also maybe a little bit higher chance of rain. So some good news there that we're actually going to see the potential for some slightly cooler conditions. Now, the drought monitor came out today. I'll show you that quickly. Tim and I are going to hit on this as well. We had some minor improvement in parts of South Carolina, but overall, there wasn't a whole lot. And now that I lost my drought monitor too, there we go. Losing all my graphics today. The computer doesn't like me. But we did see up in Tim's area, and I'll talk to Tim about this. If you watched this yesterday, or not, was it Tuesday? I wasn't here yesterday. Tuesday, we talked about the area between the triad and the triangle. We were going to see exceptional drought, and sure enough, that area is under exceptional drought. It has not rained at all up that way, and Tim will attest to this. It just has not been very wet. We had some rain in May, which helped us out, but to the north we haven't. So most of our areas stayed the same. So I wouldn't say it got worse or got better. It's just kind of status quo. But if we don't see a pattern change pretty soon, we're probably going to see a lot more areas added to this area of exceptional and extreme drought. Still watching these storms up in Illinois. We're going to talk about that as well. Pretty nasty storms right now moving through central Illinois. We had a tornado emergency earlier this afternoon up in that area. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the drought, the heat wave, which is going to continue, and maybe some relief coming up next week. That's when Tim joins me from Greensboro, coming up in about 2.5 minutes. So stick around and stay right there.
Weather Impact Live with Brad Panovich is sponsored by Moisture Lock, crawl space, basement, and foundation repair experts serving the Carolinas since 1988.
Tired of all this rain? Does your yard look like a swamp after it rains? Hi, I'm Greg Doggett with Moisture Lock, Charlotte's premier waterproofing and foundation repair company. The longer water sits, the softer soil will become. This can cause foundation issues. If you're having drainage issues, contact Moisture Lock. We'll get the water away from your home and out of your yard.
Moisture Lock, stabilize, enhance, protect.
except for the area that we were kind of pinpointing on Tuesday, I think when we talked about this, was up in your area between basically Greensboro to Raleigh, exceptional drought. And that's not shocking. I know you know this more than our folks down here in the Charlotte area, but for folks down here who have gotten some rain in May, it didn't rain at all up there in May pretty much. And those are big cities, right, Tim, and a lot of water draw. So I am curious, with this update today, have you heard anything up your way about water restrictions?
We're still in the waiting game as far as city of Greensboro. Greensboro water supply still looks pretty okay. I'm hearing it's a lot worse over by the Raleigh area. We're seeing how bad the Falls Lake area is right now, down below 70%, I think, which is certainly a problem and a big concern for them, especially if that continues. But still nothing all that concrete, Brad. And we've been trying to kind of get more details from Alamance County and Guilford and Orange and areas like that. But overall, still kind of staying the course for a lot of folks. I know Durham is maybe moving toward level 2 water restrictions soon, so things are getting worse, but you can see clearly that darker brown shade, that's the worst category that there is. It doesn't get any worse than that, and we haven't had that around here since 2008, so it's been a long time, long enough that a lot of us can't really relate to it, because it's 20 years ago, basically, so things have changed a lot since then, but it's getting tough, and so we definitely need the rain. It's so hard to do this time of year to spread it out evenly. Last night we had a storm that dropped 4 inches up by Mount Airy. The rest of us didn't get a drop, and that's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, and for some of these reservoirs, you need like widespread rain and soaking rains. Sometimes you can get bigger thunderstorm complexes that can help, but I'm sure you saw Ethan, our friend Ethan Clark's post over there from Falls Lake, some of the drone shots. That's scary because that is like Raleigh's water supply. That is a vital source of drinking water for them, and that is fed not only from areas around here, but also rainfall up in Virginia. Which we should say, up in Virginia there hasn't been much rain either. None of that's flowing south into North Carolina, so it's kind of a double whammy. We talked about the Catawba Basin for us, which is the mountains and foothills. Over that way, you've got the northern Piedmont, but up into the Piedmont of Virginia as well. Rainfall up there has been very sparse since the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's funny how some areas have gotten a lot of help. South Carolina's really improved a whole lot, and then others just kind of stay the course. And so we're still seeing that around here. I know Virginia needs help, like you said. Tennessee got a lot better. Alabama got a lot better. It's not been an even improvement for sure. And we're only halfway through June, not even halfway through June. So who's to say when it will improve, barring any large-scale changes? Maybe we get some tropical help at some point, but I wouldn't bet on that. So we're kind of just, having to, I think mentally folks should be prepared for this to last a long time and for it to be pretty bad for a while.
Yeah, and to add insult to injury, today was brutal. It was pretty hot and steamy. Tomorrow looks even worse. Yeah. I know you guys are under this heat advisory as well as we are tomorrow. And I had to say this in my local forecast, Tim. People see this map, right? The advisory, and the heat isn't going to stop at county lines, everybody. So just so you know, if you're outside of these heat advisories, it's going to be equally as hot tomorrow. It's just a jurisdictional, it's a weird thing. I mean, if you're east of the mountains, it's going to be really hot and steamy tomorrow. It's not like it's any better going across the county line. So don't think because you're not in the shaded orange county that you're not going to have heat advisory conditions, because I think everybody will tomorrow, Tim.
Yeah, for sure. It's just a National Weather Service thing. In our area, we've got Blacksburg to the north, Raleigh to the east. You don't have to worry about that if you're a viewer or a consumer. It doesn't really make a difference. All of us are going to be hot and humid. And we didn't have a heat advisory today. And guess what? It still felt like 100 outside. Yeah. The difference between today and tomorrow is really small. But, hey, it was really hot today. We actually got up to around 96 in Greensboro. Wow. That's our worst. Our air conditioning is also not working here, which is fun. It's our worst heat day since June of last year. Wow. So it's been almost a year for us, Brad. August of last year had very few hot days, and even July for us didn't get above 96. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's rare for you guys to beat us because I think we ended up at 93 or 94. So you guys were actually a little bit hotter than us. But the weird thing today is we had the worst combination of heat and humidity. Our dew point, we had that 93, 94. It was over 73. So at one point we had a 101 heat index today, which is the highest for the year and also our hottest temperature for the year so far. But tomorrow, I don't know what your forecast is, but I'm going in 97-ish for us. And our record is 98. So I think we could be very close to a record high tomorrow. The record for us today was 100, so actually harder to get to today. But tomorrow looks like a lot more doable. And because we're not going to see the dew points mix out very much tomorrow, it does look like our heat index will be up there around 105. So I think that's why you're seeing the heat advisories issued, just because I think the one thing that caught people off guard today, and even me, I thought, well, it'd be pretty hot. But when I saw the 73-degree dew point in the middle of the afternoon, I was like, wow, the humidity is staying up there. So that's dangerous, Tim. Anytime we see that, that's when you worry about people's health, because your body just isn't really good at cooling itself when it gets that hot.
We had a fundraiser locally today for the Salvation Army. It was free ice cream. So we were out scooping ice cream at a park downtown today. And it was great. They raised $10,000 for the Salvation Army because all these scoops were donated, and it was $1 a scoop toward them. But in any case, I can tell you, it was a hot day to be scooping ice cream out there for a couple hours when I was out there to do it. So the ice cream didn't melt. People got to enjoy, but you still got to drink that water to stay cool on a day like today.
Yeah, that's a tough day to be outside. I had to say, kudos to all the HVAC repairmen out there and the roofers, the people that are working in this heat, construction workers, because it is brutal, Tim. I don't know how some of those folks do it, but kudos to them, because we couldn't get by without them, especially the HVAC people that have to go in these hot attics to replace a system. And I'm sure, like, your air conditioning broke there. I saw a lot of repair trucks today. I feel like a lot of people had air conditioning problems when they realized my system's not keeping up in this heat. And that's when it can be dangerous. When you can't get inside and cool yourself off, then you really worry about people.
Absolutely, and it's always in these heat waves when you start to notice it. That's kind of when maybe the stress breaks, or you can get all these little parts on the compressor that they're not really doing, or the condenser that are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we salute you. And thank you for your work, proud HVAC folks of the Carolinas. It's not an easy job, and a busy one for sure.
I want to hit on the El Nino thing here in a second, but there's a little bit of breaking weather news, Tim, and I don't know if you've been following online, but we've had some pretty massive tornadoes touch down in Illinois. What made these stick out to me was we had a rare tornado emergency for this storm. And what was really weird about it, Tim, I was watching the radar, so just in full transparency, this is from our friends at Weather-Front app. Look at the supercells merge here. We had two separate rotations merge, and now it's one rotation. So I can't imagine some of these chasers. So I'm back this up and kind of show you what I'm talking about. There's a rotation there, right about there. There's another rotation there, and they kind of merged together and became one rotation. So it's pretty rare to see supercells merging, and another one to the south. If you're curious where this is in relation to Chicago, the Joliet, Illinois radar is right there. That's where the Weather Service office is, and then you can see Chicago up there. So these are heading towards the Chicagoland area, and there's a couple strong storms back to the west. But boy, Tim, we can't buy a drop of rain, but the Midwest has just seemed like clobbered after wave of severe weather, not only this spring, but now into early summer.
They have, and one of the things we've noticed, Brad, and this is partly when you can get into droughts, is that the weather pattern has kind of had some persistence to it, and one of the parts that's been persistent is a big high pressure over the southeast, and so what that does kind of deflects the storms around us, as we know, but they got to go somewhere, and so often they've been getting pushed around and sent up through the Midwest and kind of squeezed a little bit. And so when you're doing that, you're creating some really intense weather, some strong convergence of moisture and heat and all those things. And you showed it there, but this is really a bad spot to be in right now all across Illinois. We talked about this briefly on the show yesterday, but it was expected to be a bad day. They got upgraded to a level 4 risk of severe weather, so it's been well forecast. It's been well anticipated. We mentioned in an interview a couple weeks ago with the SPC about these new outlooks where they were trying to show, hey, here's what the intensity could be. And for today, they were showing these could actually be intense tornadoes, not just run-of-the-mill ones. And so I think it's a feather in the cap to show that, unfortunately, this bad situation is happening. But this new approach does have some value to it. So hopefully the word got out that, yeah, the extra intensity on some of these storms should be expected. And that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, that conditional intensity forecast was like EF3, and that I actually saw a mesoscale discussion for that supercell forecasting EF3 or stronger tornadoes, which is not something you see very often. Just shows you that environment. But yeah, I know the next question, Tim, for most of our followers and viewers will be, is that heading our way? Well, tomorrow there is this.
Sure.
And I don't know how much you're buying. I mean, I saw this too. SPC has us in the level 2. I just think if we're going to see a strong storm tomorrow, it's going to be like today, super isolated. But because of the intense heating and there's going to be an outflow boundary probably from those storms in the Midwest, there is a trigger I think we're going to have tomorrow to help feed off of some of this heat and humidity. We really haven't had a trigger today. It's been air mass thunderstorms. Tomorrow, we got the combination of the high heat, high humidity, and then possibly an outflow boundary from this MCS, we call it. That's just a fancy name for a thunderstorm complex. So tomorrow there probably will be a couple strong storms, but I don't think they'll be widespread, Tim. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I agree with you. I think, if you're trying to convince yourself, why would we have storms tomorrow? For all the reasons you just said. When it comes to storms, you need heat, humidity, and a trigger. The trigger is something to cause the air to go up and make the storms happen. We've got the heat and humidity. We know that.
Yeah.
But is there that spark to make them happen? The front or a little boundary, that makes sense. It's just not being shown super well in a lot of computer models, and I don't know about you, I've been pretty disappointed with the accuracy of some of our thunderstorm modeling lately, not just in this part of the country, but I know a lot of the chasers have been saying that in the middle of the country too. They've been struggling a little bit, so we take it for what it's worth. There's a chance of some storms tomorrow. It's just hard to say exactly how many of them will be popping up. But if you get one, don't be shocked if there's damaging wind or maybe even some hail. The air aloft is pretty dry.
Yeah, and there's a lot of debate among us meteorologists about what's causing that. Could it be the lack of upper air data? Because for whatever reason, and I know some of our Weather Service friends have defended this, but there seems to be an every other 12-hour shift in how many soundings or weather balloons are going up, Tim. And at least in the middle of the country, it seems like it is having an impact on understanding some of the thunderstorm parameters, which for us, really important stuff is like, those layers of the atmosphere. How cool is it? How much cape is there? How much shear? So some of those things are really important to thunderstorm forecasting. And the fact that we're not getting some of those weather balloons, I am curious if that might be playing a role.
Me too. And, even just the simple fact of is less data good or bad? Well, I would say it's probably bad. It's just hard to qualify what level of bad there is. So that might be for another show. Maybe we get somebody to talk to us about a helium outage or if it's just another thing. But there's been a problem with that for sure.
Yeah. And today, not that this was a big shock to anybody, but NOAA finally came out and said we're officially in El Nino. I feel like we've been talking about it for like eons. But today, and it's just kind of a technical thing. Today, we've officially had 30 days of being at this threshold of temperatures in the equatorial Pacific, and now El Nino is officially here. But I think the one thing, Tim, and I don't know how much you've talked to your viewers about this, it's gotten a lot of hype, this super El Nino, this strong El Nino. I'm not a fan of the super term because it's not really a thing. It's just a strong El Nino. And I actually thought it was interesting that Neil Jacobs today said the probability of a moderate to strong El Nino was there. He was actually kind of hedging the bets, like it could still be a moderate El Nino. But what that means impact-wise is still the big question mark. It's one thing to be in an El Nino, but how does that impact our weather? I think that's still the thing that we're not sure of. And all El Ninos are different. We can go back and look at history about how these have affected us. In fact, I pulled up a great page here. I don't know if Robert can bring it up. These are the 4 strong El Ninos since 1950. It shows the rainfall pattern across the country in the cool season. And you can see all 4 of those were strong El Ninos, meaning 2 degrees Celsius or higher El Nino numbers. And in some of them, we had a bunch of rain, like in 97, 98. But in 91, 92, Tim, it was below average rainfall. So I think that's the thing I would caution people is don't assume it's just going to be this. That's the average of all these combined. Individual El Ninos are all a little bit different.
And it's not the only factor to climate, right? El Nino is one climate index that we look at. It's a very important one. For hurricane forecasting, if you ask the forecasters what's kind of the strongest forecast indicator you could have, typically a strong El Nino has the biggest force on what happens in hurricane season. But there are a lot of other things that happen in the global climate that we'll have to dive into as we get closer to winter. But the thing we've harped on so much, and we've talked about this a few times, is going to increase the upper level winds in the Atlantic Ocean. We're probably already starting to see that a little bit. We've been off to a slow start. Will that continue through the season? Yeah, maybe so. And, I think probably the effects will be more so felt in the open Atlantic rather than closer to home.
Yeah.
And so that could mean fewer long track hurricanes across the entire ocean. That's usually good news because those tend to be the ones that really can be the ones that, are retired and cause the biggest damage and all those things. But it remains to be seen. You can always sneak some stuff in here in an El Nino year that gets talked about for years to come. So consider this, but don't, hang tight to this as the end-all, be-all.
Yeah, we had a national package tonight. I almost cringed at some of the verbiage saying this is going to cause worldwide havoc and severe storms everywhere. And it's like, well, not really everywhere. There's certain areas. This will certainly have weather impacts. There's, you always think about California and the West Coast because El Nino years, they tend to get a lot of flooding and heavy rain and big snowpack. That's an area that has a little bit more of a tie to El Nino. In the southeast where we are, it's a little less uncertain. I look at the temperature trends. Some years it's warm, some years it's not as warm. Rainfall might be the one thing that seems to be the most significant impact. I mean, if I were to average all the strong El Nino years out, it's one out of 4 of them had a dry, cool season. The other 3 were wet. So that tells you there's a 75% chance basically we have above average rainfall. But beyond that, Tim, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's still a forecast, right? There's still a lot of things we got to figure out as we get closer to the fall.
And I know we're almost out of time, but what's interesting also, an index is always more predictive when you have a big source of data on it. Consider this, the strong El Nino years, we're only listing 4. It's not like there's been a lot of them that have been 2+C in the Pacific, so it's not a big sample size.
Yeah.
So who's to say how much we really know about it? So it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, but it certainly will be a big talker, especially as we get into the fall and winter.
Yeah.
Everybody stay cool out there, stay safe. We'll be back here tomorrow, and hopefully it won't be 98 degrees in your studio, Tim.
Thank you.